In Brazil, President Lula da Silva visits the state of Maranhao to monitor the flooding situation after heavy rains. In China, the People's Liberation Army carries out military drills around Taiwan for a second day with the aim of protecting its national sovereignty and territorial integrity. And Israeli occupation forces continue to siege the siege of Al-Aqsa mosque's courtyard, scoring the entry of Jewish settlers amidst warnings from Muslim countries. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. President Lula da Silva arrived in the state of Maranhao to monitor the flooding situation in that state affected by heavy rains. The Brazilian head of state arrived on Sunday morning in the northeastern state of the country, where at least 64 cities are in an emergency situation and one has been declared a public calamity. As announced by President Lula da Silva, the reason for his visit is to monitor the flooding situation in the state and to visit the areas affected by the rains of the last few days. The president is accompanied by the governor of the state of Maranhao, Carlos Brandão, on his first visit to the region after being elected for his third presidential term. Meanwhile, the Regional Fire Department of Maranhao reported that some 35,800 families were affected by the floods and landslides in the state in the northeast of the country. On the other hand, the federal government allocated some $760,000 in March for family food baskets and popular restaurants that serve the set shelters for the victims in more than 20 municipalities. According to the National Meteorological Institute, the rains will continue throughout this weekend in most of the region. In Ecuador, the number of deaths caused by the landslide that occurred 2 weeks ago in the town of Al-Aqsa, province of Chimborazo, has risen to 33. According to the Risk Management Secretariat, 56 people are still missing and more than 1,000 have been affected by the destruction of 163 houses and the complete destruction of 55 others. The fire departments and rescuers from other cities are supporting the efforts to recover the bodies of those who could not escape the landslide. In this regard, the Ecuadorian National Executive announced that they will allocate $200 million to help those affected by the current rainy season, the strongest in the last 15 years. On Saturday, Colombian authorities confirmed that they will maintain the orange alert after the continued seismic activity of the Nevado del Ruiz volcano. The Colombian Geological Service reported that the activity of the volcano at the orange level may fluctuate, which does not mean that the alert will be lowered. The geological entity referred to the monitoring protocols of Nevado del Ruiz and estimated that the activity patterns could change to red if imminent eruptions arise. At the same time, the authorities of the Department of Caldas insist on the need to evacuate communities near the volcano, where several people reiterate their refusal to leave their homes. In Cuba, search and rescue teams have found the lifeless body of the fourth worker who was missing after a chimney column broke off at the Antonio Guterres thermoelectric power plant in Matanzas on Saturday. According to a national television report, the body belongs to 57-year-old Lázaro Frank Montero, although it is still necessary to wait for the official forensic medicine report. This concludes the search for the 4 workers who were at the scene at the time of the incident, with the preliminary results of 2 injured and 2 dead. The collapse of a 7-meter-high wall occurred when the 4 employees were working on the lower part of the chimney. The victims belong to a Ministry of Constructions company specialized in repair and maintenance in high altitude and chimneys. Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel sent his condolences on Twitter to families, friends, and co-workers of Lázaro Frank Montero and expressed his deep regret at receiving the hard news of the worker's passing and sent a strong embrace to the people of Matanzas. On Sunday, 1 person died and at least 7 were injured in Honduras during a riot and simultaneous shootings in 4 penitentiaries. According to the National Penitentiary Institute, the altercations were between inmates of the Mara Salvatrucha and Barrio 18 gangs. In this sense, the confrontations took place in the prison of Ilama, located in the department of Santa Barbara, in Moroseli, department of Paraíso, and too near Tegucigalpa, the capital of Honduras. Also, the penitentiary authorities affirmed that they were able to re-establish order in the 4 penitentiary centers, and reinforcements were sent to watch over the security of the inmates. In addition, the authorities detailed that 2 people were injured in the national penitentiary located in the capital. In Bolivia, police authorities said 12 people, including 2 minors, were killed in a head-on collision between 2 vehicles on a highway in the country's west. 4 people were also injured in what so far is the deadliest accident in the South American nation in 2023. The accident occurred on the highway linking the Andean city of Oruro, some 200 kilometers south of La Paz, with the border town of Pisiga. According to initial investigations, a heavy truck and a passenger minibus collided head-on. Images posted on social media showed that the minibus was almost completely destroyed. Let's take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, in which you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. Chinese armed forces continue for a second consecutive day a joint patrol over Taiwan Strait. On Sunday, the Chinese military continued its combat readiness patrols and military exercises around the island of Taiwan. The maritime maneuvers involved destroyers, frigates, speedboats, and coastal assault forces. At the same time, dozens of Air Force aircraft flew into the air target airspace in combat formations. According to a command spokesman, these operations serve as a strong warning against separatist forces seeking Taiwan independence and foreign interference forces.
We organized this combat drill totally in accordance with the real combat conditions and focus on improving the capability of rapid response firepower and high-precision strikes, in bid to comprehensively test the new methods and tactics of using weapons and equipment for actual combat.
In this contest, United States Representative Michael McCall said that his Taiwanese host state launched on that the U.S. is willing to deliver weapons and military training to the island, not for war, but for peace.
We are doing everything we can in Congress to speed up these sales and get the weapons that you need to defend yourself. And we will provide training to your military, not for war, but for peace.
This Sunday in Japan, local elections to elect governors, regional assemblies, and mayors' offices are being held all over the country. In general terms, these elections will elect 9 prefecture governors, mayors of 6 major cities, and assembly seats in 41 prefectures and 17 cities. The governorships in question include those of the prefecture of Hokkaido, Kanagawa, and Osaka, as well as that of the mayor with the same name, as they are among those with the largest population. The second round of this election is scheduled for April the 23rd and will select mayors and members of local assemblies in other Japanese municipalities, as well as 5 seats remaining vacant in the national parliament. Russian humanitarian organizations warn that the Ukrainian forces plan to carry out a false flag operation with the use of toxic ammunition to blame Moscow for the attack. According to the Russian headquarters for Interagency Coordination for Humanitarian Response in Ukraine, during the last 2 weeks, the Ukrainian military prepared a so-called emplacement in the locality of Atika, Sumy region, near the line of contact with the Russian troops. In a statement issued by the humanitarian institution, they warned that as part of the provocations, it is planned to deliver a pseudo-post corpses as well as remains of the Ukrainian servicemen who died allegedly as a result of the use of the Russian artillery ammunition filled with poisonous substances. These actions would allow invited experts from Western countries currently on Ukrainian territory to document the alleged use of chemical weapons. Russian anti-air defense shot down a Ukrainian missile over the Crimean Peninsula. Sergei Aksionov, governor of the city of Fedorodossia on the peninsula, confirmed that the city's anti-air defense intercepted an incoming missile launched from Ukrainian territory. The officials stressed that although the missile debris fell in the region, there were no casualties and no considerable damage to the city's infrastructure. Authorities warned that in the last weeks, the Ukrainian army tried several times to attack the infrastructure of the peninsula with drones. Hundreds gathered for the funeral of high-profile Russian military blogger Vladimir Tatarsky in Moscow after he was killed in a bomb attack in St. Petersburg. Mourners, some carrying flowers, gathered at a cemetery in western Moscow with a heightened police presence. Some supporters wore the letters C and V on their clothes, symbols of Moscow's operation in Ukraine. On the other hand, priests in red robes and carrying lit candles led a funeral service at the cemetery. Tatarsky's awards were placed on velvet cushions near his coffin. Tatarsky, whose real name was Maxim Fomin, was killed on Sunday after a woman handed him a bus that later exploded in a cafe, wounding more than 40 people. Russian authorities blamed the attack on Ukraine's intelligence service. TeleSUR English continues to grow. You can now tune in from 33 different African countries through StarSat, dial 461 and enjoy a Latin American alternative broadcast. One final short break and we'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back from the south. Israeli occupation forces continue the siege of the esplanade to Al-Aqsa mosque to force the entry of Jewish settlers into the religious enclosure amidst warnings from Muslim countries. According to the Department of Islamic Endowments in Jerusalem, dozens of settlers entered the site and carried out provocative tours under the protection of Israeli uniformed personnel on the occasion of the Passover celebrations. The troops set up several barriers inside the walls of the old city and prevented the young Palestinians from entering the Al-Aqsa mosque. On the other hand, the Jerusalem government recalled that the exclusive right of Muslims to the Al-Aqsa mosque and described the ongoing violations of the sanctity of the prayer site as a crime of occupation. The government recalled that such actions are in breach of the 1967 status quo, according to which Jews are only allowed to visit the site but not to pray. In this context, Israeli occupation authorities continue to hold Palestinian citizens in administrative detention without charge or trial, under the pretext of possessing an alleged secret file. As detailed by the Palestinian Prisoners Club, administrative detention has increased significantly since 2022. In January of that year, the number of administrative detainees was around 500, whereas by December their number exceeded 850. The agencies said that by the end of March 2023, the number of detainees in Israeli prisons reached 1,016, including 6 minors and 1 woman, the highest number since 2003. People gathered in front of the Moroccan parliament in Rabat to show their support for Palestinians. Tensions between Israel and the Palestinians reached its highest level in years following clashes inside the Al-Aqsa mosque in Jerusalem, the third holiest place in Islam. Global criticism and concern mounted Wednesday after Israeli police clashed with Palestinians inside Islam's third holiest site, sparking a military exchange of rockets and airstrikes with fears of further escalation.
Today, with this new right-wing fascist government, the Palestinian people are facing a very great danger. These people dream of driving out the Palestinians, of continuing this Nakba, which has been uninterrupted since 1948, by amplifying it, by driving the Palestinians out of Jerusalem, and by building more and more settlements. After the crimes committed by the occupier of Palestine on the esplanade of the mosques and within the Al-Aqsa mosque itself, without any respect for a sacred place, a religious place, the Israeli army returned to chase away the young people who were there, to enforce the rule that no prayer will be said by any religion other than Islam on the esplanade of the mosque. That is the law.
On Saturday, protests against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's judicial reform continued amid escalating violence in Tel Aviv and the Gaza Strip. 3 months after protests against the Prime Minister's policies aimed at giving the executive branch greater powers over the judiciary, demonstrations continue despite the security situation caused by the recent attacks on Friday, in which at least 3 people were killed due to increased tensions in the Gaza Strip. In this regard, despite Netanyahu's postponement of the judicial process to push forward the reform after he announced talks with the opposition to reach an agreement, protests have continued week after week in rejection of the bill, describing the talks as a new strategy of the Prime Minister. Pope Francis called for an end to the armed conflicts affecting the world during his Easter Sunday Mass and the traditional blessing Urbi et Orbi. Gathered around St. Peter's Square at the Vatican in front of thousands of faithful, the Supreme Pontiff expressed his deep concern of the conflicts in which many countries around the world are currently involved. During his speech, Pope Francis referred to the conflict in Ukraine and also to Haiti, where for several years have been suffering from a serious social, political, and humanitarian crisis. The Pope also condemned the new wave of tensions between Israelis and Palestinians following the violent intervention of the Israeli occupiers' police in the Al-Aqsa mosque in Jerusalem, events that he said threatened the desired climate of trust and mutual respect necessary to resume dialogue. In this sense, he called on the international community to put an end to all these conflicts. In Syria, 6 people were killed and several others injured on Saturday after a nighttime tank mine exploded, destroying a vehicle carrying multiple passengers. According to local authorities, the explosion occurred while a truck was transporting farmers who were on their way to collect fruits in the Al-Amur mountain range located in the town of Al-Sukna in the province of Homs. In this regard, a report by the Syrian Red Crescent detailed that the number of people killed and maimed by mine explosions between 2018 and 2022 amounted to 5,070 and indicated that only between February and March of 2023 about 47 people were killed and 71 others were injured in similar circumstances. Likewise, the Syrian delegate to the United Nations, Hussam al-Din Allah, recently revealed that the army managed to dismantle over 180,000 mines and other explosive devices despite the presence of foreign occupation and groups of this type that hindered the work of dismantling the artifacts. In Burkina Faso, at least 44 people were killed in attacks on 2 villages in the Sahel region. Authorities registered 31 deaths in Kauraku and 13 deaths in Tondobi, as well as several injuries and property damage. The security situation in Burkina Faso worsened since 2015 following a military coup. Since then, the nation experienced successive similar situations. On September 30th, 2022, a group of military officers led by Army Captain Ibrahim Traore overthrew Damiba. In addition to Damiba's ouster, the coup leaders who claimed to belong to the Patriotic Movement for Safeguard and Restoration, like the Lieutenant Colonel, announced the constitution's suspension, the government's dissolution, and the closing of the borders until further notice. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.